So please welcome back to the show, Jeannie Winters. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back.
I was thinking about you and thinking of how we connected in this podcast. And, I go back to all the little puzzle pieces that got us to connect. And yeah,
Crazy.
it's just like gratitude overload and love fills my heart every time I think of you. And I
Oh,
feel like I've known you forever. And it's that soul remembering that I know that we were meant to be in this life. And I think of, starting a podcast, meeting Carol, it's like all the little things, the pieces that had to come together to get to meet you and know that
yeah,
we were supposed to meet on this journey and do all these amazing things together and share your magic. It's just
yours as well.
over overload gratitude. So anyway, I just want
Absolutely.
you to know how I feel about you and what I know you are, who you are, and what you do and give to the world. Such amazing things. But I wanted to have you back because there's so much more genie magic to share. And, creating this community that we've created and, sharing your human design and gene keys and all the natal charts and the astrology and your wisdom and all the things that we're going to go to the next level. And I had a reading with you a couple days ago on the human design variables, and it went deeper into my relationships with my girls because you had had a session with them. So
Wonderful
understanding
girl.
that. So let's kind of start there with this new, human design goes so deep
Yeah,
and people don't understand because I don't think many people, I think most people have just scratched the surface,
right.
especially with what they've learned. And you've spent an hour and a half to 2 hours with each person. And that's just scratching the surface, but it's Jeannie's style of scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So go into because learning like the left brain and the right, the way the four quadrants and how I connected with Paige and how I connected with Presley and how I didn't and if I'm drawn to water or drawn like just all the things that make you realize like there's so much more to just our personality. It goes so deep. And when you explain it the way you do in human design, it makes you really see, well, it makes me see my children for sure in a whole different way. So you take it, talk.
Yeah, I loved yours and that's kind of it's interesting because I felt driven to I was surprised that I felt driven to do three of you at one time, because it's like I was like I'm insane for thinking that, but I just went with what was given to me. So um what it is the variables, they I don't want to confuse it with the terms that they use, but I'll tell you just to have it out there, the tone and the color and the base. We went into some of it. So you have the arrows. There are four quadrants. You have the upper left, the upper right, the lower left, and the lower right. And each one deals with different aspects of your life. So the I'll just give an example. So we know that the upper left um, section where the arrow is facing depends on if you are a passive brain or an active brain, right? And so you, me, and both of your girls are all passive. Not and it's interesting because the word passive sounds so like, laid back and everything. And that's not what it is, right? The words are deceiving. So we take in that information in a different way where an active brain goes out and deliberately tries to, I want to learn about this. And they go out. You and I and your girls sit back and we're like, let me see how that works before I put it into my repertoire or whatever. And so that also says, it says whether you're, I don't think it's that one, but one of them says whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And so um, you and one of your daughters, I think it's Paige, are extroverts, and Presley is an
Presley.
introvert.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just so many different ways, or I use the word variables to it. But the thing that I like the most about it is that a lot of people, so we have the types, right? They're the different types of energies that you have. Um, most people think that, okay, if you are a manifesting generator and someone else is a manifesting generator, then you probably like all the same things. And that's not how it is, right?
Right.
So if you, like we discussed when it comes to family, if you were going to choose to go on a vacation, right? You and you decide, okay, I'm going to go on a cruise, right? Now, you and your youngest, I believe, do are is it your youngest? I
No,
think
it's
the
Paige. I think
middle
it's Paige and I. Yeah.
pa- page, really? I
Oh,
thought
maybe
it
not.
was
Maybe not.
that's okay. Well, so I think Paige was Shores.
Yes, Paige
So
was
Paige
Shores.
did well on the water.
Right.
Everything had to do. So she would be very good with that. Whereas Presley, she would have to have a lot of interaction. Remember, you had markets, but yours
Right.
was internal and her markets was external. So the three of you going on a trip would need different things to happen, different environments along the way in order for everybody to get what they wanted from it. If you just went on a cruise and there wasn't, a lot of visiting outside off of the boat, off of the ship to, different kinds of interactions and stuff, you and Paige would be okay. But Presley would be like, oh, bored, you know,
Hmm.
because she would want more interaction. Now, of course, it's one of the big cruises. She may have that interaction on board, but she wants everything out. Like you said, she likes New York. Perfect
Right.
example, right? So these things are really important because there's other aspects, depending on which arrow you're talking about. It goes into how you receive information best in different areas. So it may be how you receive your information best in work environment, as opposed to how you receive your information best in a love relationship, right? So you could be somebody who is quote unquote observed in one, but be an observer in the
Oh.
other. And those make a big difference, right? So if you think that, well, the way I interact, in my social life is going to be the way I interact at work, sometimes that backfires, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding these types of things allows you to integrate easier. So somebody may have a degree in something and they're not fitting in for some reason. They're like, I have the education, I have, I'm very smart. I don't understand why I can't get on board with my coworkers. And it very well could be that they're using their social skills in an area for work where they're actually supposed to be using a different set of tools. And because they're conditioned to believe this, they don't know it and they can't move up quicker. It's if they just understand that, they don't even have to do much different. They just need to understand how they interact. They can start to move up easier. It just makes life easier each way you go. So
Oh,
that's what the
interesting.
variables are.
Yes, and I doing the reading with you and understanding as a mother, like with Paige, for example, I was telling you that knowing that she's a shore, you had the whole thing with all the pictures of the water and that she's drawn to that. And that's when she's like fully into who
Yeah,
she is, right? In her, whatever that, her soul like
right.
says
Mhm.
yes, right? Well,
Authentic
and
self.
then I said, in 2020, when everything closed down and there was only crew available, and she's like, didn't even know what that was and what the boat looked like or anything. And I took her to practice and they got to do it for a week just to try. And the first 2 days were on land and she hated it. And she said, Mom, this is too hard. And then day 3 was all a water day. And I got on the boats and I picked her up and she said, Mom, I found my thing. I love it so much. I can't wait to do it again. So
That's
that
awesome.
right there is such a confirmation to me when you were saying when you're showing me that if we knew that about our children from day one and when learn and anyone listening, I would highly recommend it, especially if you have little kids that are just
Yeah.
now coming into the world. So it kind of like even now with Presley choosing a college, it makes you realize too, like she keeps talking about New York or and I'm thinking, oh, you're not going to go to New York, and here I am taking that away from her
Right.
when that's really what lights her up. That's what fulfills her, right?
Not even just fulfill, it does fulfill her, but it actually, she would not absorb the information um, as well if she went to like Appalachian State University, which is a small mountain area. Her body does not absorb things very well in that area like they do so she would, I mean, she would pass, but she wouldn't be like she could be, the best of the best in New York or in Chicago and something like that. She needs a lot of action happening because that's what her energy works with. So if you understand that, it really helps. Like she can also, if I remember correctly, one of your daughters is able to eat whatever they want, it depending on what they feel like. I think that's Presley.
Yeah.
So if she went to an Italian restaurant and she just felt like having that right then, it would be fine for her. And whereas like me, I had explained I have a cold determination. And so that means that there's a lot of other things that go along with it. But as far as digesting my food, I do better when I have things that are lower than body temperature. And like I said, I tested it because I've always had issues with anxiety and I went and had a ice pop and I literally refocused. It was as if
Huh.
I took ADHD medicine or something. I was like, what? Or tranquilizer or whatever it is that you have to take when you're all anxious. But it was crazy, right? And so it goes into how I, digest information too, but it also goes into how you digest food.
Yeah.
So some people like I've said before, people tend to put diets out there and they make it like, oh, if you eat cold things, you're going to lose weight. Da, 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 da. Well, that only works for a certain amount of people. There's so many variations, right? Because if somebody had a hot determination, which is another thing, and they always ate cold because somebody told them it was the best diet ever, it actually would be doing the total opposite to them.
Huh.
And so you really have to know, right? If somebody struggles with gaining weight faster, they may want to learn their determination because it may be they could possibly have a cold determination and have like a shore um, environment and they're living somewhere in the mountains, or I should say maybe I put that backwards, but basically, if they had a hot determination and a shore environment, and yet they're living in the mountains in a cold situation,
Right.
that's why they're not losing weight. Their body is literally fighting the digestive process from information, energy, and food.
Wow.
So understanding that helps
You
tremendously.
know how, yeah. But what I was just thinking is, when you move somewhere and you're just like, oh, this just feels like when I moved to San Diego, I knew it was my home. Like it just felt like I was home. And I grew up in Seattle and I just, that wasn't I didn't know any different. But then when I moved here or I came here on vacation and there was a possibility of me finishing college here, it was like, is this home? Is there something to do with my, like that intuitive part
Yes.
of my energy
Absolutely.
that knows that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So your so I don't remember all of your stuff, but I know that your internal markets would very well align with San Diego. But so like I totally agree with that. If you would have gone to so the markets meaning um again the words get confusing, but markets, yes, you would do good in an actual market, but it's more of a lot of things happening. But for an internal markets, that's more on your internal, how you feel, right? More self-growth type of stuff, and that's the environment that you're in. California is very much about self-development, self-improvement. They're on the cutting edge of everything when it comes
Right.
to mind, body, so that's where you feel that comfort, where somebody else might not. Like grew up in Queens, New York, and I always felt like a fish out of water.
Right.
I mean, I was comfortable, I did my thing, but I always felt like there's a clique that I don't belong to, and I don't understand why. And
Right.
it's because I'm not that, I'm Shores. I was like the furthest thing from where I was
Right.
supposed to be,
Huh.
right? So yes, intuitively you do know. You do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fascinating. Let's shift to the 7-year cycles, unless there's anything more that you wanted to share on the
Oh,
variables.
that one is so deep, there's no way to, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it was, I would highly recommend that. Jeannie has that on her website. I'll give you all the information out in the show
I've got
notes.
an Ashley discount or an Ashley special too.
Okay, good. Of course. Anyway, let's do the 7-year cycles. And that's was fascinating because when I went through my first session with you to learn the human design and understanding that, it was so fascinating to really relate to the 7 years, each 7-year cycle, and how I was like, my head was exploding because it was so true, so relevant to what my soul was doing every 7 years. So explain that and why.
Okay, so there, depending on who you are, science, spirituality, um, I'm on the spiritual side more than I am on the science side, but I'm in the middle. So science won't say it, but they know every 7 years something happens and you make a major shift. They say it's all of your cells have reproduced and you're a whole new body. In spirituality, it's astrology. Saturn, every time Saturn shifts, it literally hits a quarter of the chart, the natal chart. So whenever you start anything, whether it's your birth, your marriage, or anything, your Saturn starts a clock. So if you think you're looking at a clock, it's at 12. And
Okay.
then 7 years later, it's at 3. And then 7 years later, it's at 6, and so on. And those are hard aspects, okay? Or I shouldn't say hard, they're challenging aspects. So when you get to a seventh year, you are supposed to look back on what's gone on in the past 7 years and decide, have I dealt with the things that I was faced with, and am I ready to move on? But we're not told that. So the first 3 7-year cycles are really governed by doctors, parents, teachers, because you don't know anything about that. And they call those milestones, right? So
Right.
you go to the doctor and the kids get shots or whatever, right? But what we don't know is that before we're born, we actually have decided all of the different wounds that we came here to experience. So within each 7 year cycle, there is a wound that will be triggered at some point, depending on what your life cycle is or your lifestyle is. And the wound will come up through that. But your core wound is embedded before you're born. Okay. So there are 6 wounds, and mine happens to be guilt, right? And we have all of them, but there's one that sticks with us depending on our date of birth. And then, so for the first 7 years, a piece having to do with guilt will show up. Something's going to happen to me that I'm going to take responsibility for that is not my responsibility because I feel guilty that I did something to cause whatever it was to happen. Could be anything, right?
Mm.
It could be somebody inappropriately touching you and you thinking you caused it. It could be somebody getting into an accident and you think it was your fault because you made them run out and get the ball,
Right.
whatever. But every 7 years it's a different thing, right? And it's so, but each one of us has very, very specific wounds that we're supposed to be working with. If you look back, so you can find out specifically what it is, right? By
Right.
going to something like the gene keys. You can get very, very specific, okay? And what you do is you contemplate what triggered this. And everybody that I've ever done a reading for knows immediately when we start talking about it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's when me and my sister did blah, blah, blah. I cannot believe it. It is not the situation that happened. Everybody thinks, oh, if that didn't happen, my life would be different. That's not true.
Mm.
If that didn't happen, you would have been triggered by something else before that 7 years was up. There are many things that could trigger
Wow.
it. Okay. So Everybody needs to give themselves a break. Everything that happened for a reason. You chose it. The circumstances that came around triggered it so that you could have the experience, but you're depending on how your parents handle it, how your school handles it, how your friends handle it, how you're guided through it, you are going to either not have a very hard time with that in the future, or you're going to have a very hard time taking that on, right? For the first 21 years. Now, from there's every 7 years has a theme to it. Okay. And when you get to all of it is, I call it the setup, right? So from birth to 21 is the setup. It's whatever you chose to learn when you came here, whatever you chose to experience, that's going to happen in that time. From 21 to 28 is when you get to say, I'm breaking free of all this stuff that happened to me, and I'm going to live my life like no one's ever lived it. And we're going to get back at the world. And that's when we're supposed to learn who we are and stuff. And then from 28 to 35, we start our families, start our careers. And then from 35 to 42, we continue on with that, but we start to recognize that we have a purpose here. And what is my purpose? That's where we're getting, curious. So there's other areas that pop in at that point that astrology has to do with. It is your north and south node, which is your strength and your destiny. And the other one is your Uranus opposition. And those are really big because the 40 at 42, your Uranus opposition says, well, anything you have not taken care of up till now, you're going to have to face because you got to head toward your destiny at 50. So what we're going to do is blow it up. So anything that you ignore all of your life, right? You deal with guilt. If you didn't work with your guilt sections,
Mm-hmm.
and you just said, oh, I'm just not going to deal with that. I'm just not going to deal with that. I just want to hang out with that person. It's not those things. It's the underlying core that you have to deal with. If not at 42, or 43, it's somewhere in there, you're going to be hit with something big that you haven't dealt with. It might not be exactly what you dealt with, but if it has to do with relationships, you're going to be hit with something very big in a relationship. If it has to do with career, you're going to be hit with something very big in your career. It's something is going to happen to shake your world because you didn't face it up till now. And then moving forward, you're supposed to, on the at 49, deal with that is when you close out or you come to um, a very good understanding of your core wounds, because 49 is when that core wound comes back around and you say, oh yeah, I dealt with this and I'm ready to move on. And that's when you move into your destiny at 50. It's like a light switch. If you can get it done, I'm telling you, your 40s are really hard if you don't get it right before there, at least, open your eyes to it. But at
Right.
50 and forward, you're going to step into your destiny and then become, whether it's a role model, a leader, whatever it is that you're meant to be, and life will get that much easier. Life is literally set up for us in 7 year segments, but we don't know that. And so
Right.
people get so frustrated. That's why there's so much depression, anxiety, drug abuse, alcoholism, because people don't know that there are sections where we're supposed to stop and say, oh, okay, did I do all this? What do I need to do to catch up on this? We're just thrown out there. Nobody really knows. And
Right.
so that's what I teach people. And the fact that they can learn it themselves. And I'm going to bring it up. We're doing the retreat. This is going to be part of the retreat, and everybody that comes to the retreat is going to get their gene keys printed out for them. And I'm going to teach them how to understand what their core and all the three wounds are after that, and how to read their children's and their
Mm.
husbands and anybody else's that they want to read. So this will give them a big step forward on, um, why is this person stuck? If they have even if they have an adult child, why do they keep getting into these bad relationships? If you can go through their wounds, you can show them, and it's like that aha moment
Right.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? This is why? Oh my gosh. And then they feel relieved of the shame or the guilt or whatever it is that their wound is, right? They're like, oh, I set this up so that I could figure it out. Okay, well, let me figure it out now.
Okay.
There's no like I'm a horrible person and I didn't
Right.
do life right. It's not like that.
Right.
Wherever
It's,
you are is where you're supposed to be.
so going back to when we are in our soul's essence, not in our human body,
Right.
and we're picking our wounds. Are we picking our wounds to, like, what is the purpose of choosing wounds?
So we all have all six core wounds, and depending on our family lineage, so as what's the word I'm looking for? Ancestral um pains, wounds. You want to come and you've had so many different lives in the past that the soul family or the spirit family or however you want to say it, the fractal that you're attached to, if the majority of people are still dealing with the same thing, you say, I want to try to see what I would experience if I can break that ancestral wound,
Hmm.
right? And so I broke mine, crazy enough. We had mine was sexual abuse, right, as from children.
Right.
Um, and I was the one who put the person in jail and just let everybody know what was going on and say no, we're not doing this, we're not putting up with this, we're not brushing this under the rug. And so I really feel very strong in with my intuition that I did that. I did break that thing. And my child who had it happen is amazing. I mean, she is living an amazing life, and the police even said she's going to be the one that makes it. She's going to be the 1% that makes it because of the way you handled it. And so you can do that. So that's what we choose, right? We choose something, but it has to come through. I could have, because my core wound was guilt, I could have very easily blamed myself for
Right.
what happened to her, and I could have hidden myself in the bottle. Nobody would have blamed me because they understand that, I didn't do anything. Something happened to my child that, nobody was blaming me, but I refused to let that, affect her. Right. And so it's that's what we're here for. We're here to make the change, to make the shift, to help evolution move forward in a positive way. And anybody born at this time is here for something big. This is not a time where you're just here to kind of smell the flowers. Everybody here, this is such a big shift for 2027, such a big shift that if you picked to be here now and you are still here, you got a big reason.
Right. I mean, everyone talks when I interview, like, if we all had our hands raised in, like, we got to pick me, pick me. We wanted
Hmm.
to come. Like, this is such a big time in this
Yep.
evolution of this planet, to be here and to know that it's like, I look at it for me, like looking at meeting you, looking at who this community that we're creating together and how I know all of these beautiful souls that it's like this magnetism that we pull.
Hmm.
And it's like, gosh, this is how I feel. I just feel like we were all together
Yeah.
and saying, let's do this and come down and you do the podcast, you meet this girl, and then you meet Jeannie. And we'll
Yep.
all, it's like such an amazing time. And what I want to talk about that because are we done talking about the 7 year?
Oh, yeah. We
Okay,
can go.
let's move on. But what Jeannie was saying is she is coming here in October, and I've talked about it so many times in the last few episodes and intros about the retreat. She's coming. She's flying into San Diego, and we're going to have the retreat the 11th and 12th of October. So if you want to learn more in depth, I will talk about it more, but I just wanted, if anyone didn't know what she was talking about as far as the retreat goes and how she's going to go deeper into the 7 year cycles with everyone, come to the retreat. So let's talk about So we were talking about 2027, the new children that are going to be coming. I mean, that's another part of it. I just saw Bashar had a shirt on that said 2027, and that's something that he's putting out there. It's like, so I'm hearing 2027 a lot. But and then I went, like I told you before we hit record, was I went into Chat GPT and talked about the 2027 child, and it came back with the rave child, and that's new for me and you. So I was
Mhm.
like, that was a whole nother rabbit hole that I can't wait to go down because I just found it. But it was explaining the DNA that these children will be coming in and where they're gonna, I mean, they're not gonna eat, they're not gonna talk. It's like so many different, I mean, what they look like, the rougher, tougher skin. I mean, I just barely scratched the surface, but will you explain what you see, the shift that you talk about that's just huge?
Yeah. So I want to preface this with don't get so worried about a drastic change happening. There is a drastic change happening, but nothing happens overnight. So when they say, oh, the end of the world in 2012, well, something did happen in 2012. There was a drastic shift, but it we didn't recognize it, right? So scientists did, astrologers did, but the everyday person, we didn't openly recognize it. Okay. So in 2012 is when I was 42. That was my Uranus opposition. So my
Oh,
nightmare happened in 2012. But most people, they're not recognizing, they're just thinking, oh, this was a time that blah, blah, blah happened. Right. So there is going to be a shift. And when we talk about the new children, the new humans, they are going to be very much like children that we consider autistic right now. We're not, we're moving to lighter beings. Lighter beings means we don't literally lighter bodies, but we won't need to eat as much. Okay. And therefore, it's not that we're not going to have to eat it all, right? Eventually, that might be, but initially, you're going to start noticing you're not going to want the hamburgers anymore. There's a lot of people who've already done this.
mm-hmm.
People who are a little more, ahead of us, right? Or ahead of um, the average person. And so you're going to start to want more plant life and, things like that. And we only have to speak to each other because we can't read each other's minds. That's why we came up with language, because we can't read each other's minds. Well, spiritually, without the body, that's how we communicate. We
Right.
communicate by reading each other's minds. So we're becoming lighter beings. So the new beings, because they're going to have more senses than we have, and they're shifting to the new evolution, they're not going to need to talk. So they're like the nonverbal autistic children. And those children, as has been proven by the telepathy tapes,
Mm-hmm.
can read their parents' minds.
Right.
So this is all happening. It's not anything like crazy. It is crazy interesting and crazy exciting, but it's no different than when we went from non-opposable thumbs to opposable thumbs, right? It's just evolution. So I do believe that I can't wait to see what happens in early in like February of 2026, because that is when we're supposed to have that whole solar flare that changes us. So
Okay.
we're getting we've been getting hit with solar flares over the past few years, and most people don't notice it. It's prepping us for a large solar flare. That doesn't mean it's going to kill everybody. That doesn't mean it's going to, it's literally just going to adjust our DNA so that we can cohabitate with the new humans, because they're going to come out totally, with the new genes and the new centers. They're going to have 11 centers instead of 9 centers. They're going to be able to read each other's minds. They're going to be able to know immediately if someone's lying to them. There's no way you can get away with stuff like that. But they're not going to care about, money like we do. They're going to care about taking care of each other. They're going to be much more humane, and we are, as you notice. I mean, think back when people used to just hang each other in the middle of the street, and no one thought anything of it, or they would use a guillotine or something, I mean, and people would watch like it was, an event. So we would never, this is not something we're, so we're moving in that direction, but this is going to be even more so. I mean, this is, you'll know if there's a predator there because you'll be able to read their mind. That's amazing, you know.
Wow.
It's not like they have to guess, did this person really do it? Everybody will know, you know.
Right. Huh.
So
Like,
it
you
won't be
mean
intriguing.
thinking of like lawyers or
Mhm.
like the trials that are going on that people are like guilty or not guilty, that
Yep.
won't even exist.
Nope. Nope.
Huh.
And it's not going to happen all at once. It's going to take time, right? So because you just can't have such a radical thing. It's that would be something like when the dinosaurs were extinct. I mean, that was radical.
Right.
This is not radical. This is going to be, just us shifting into, a different being. It's just evolution, but it's going to be amazing. Everything we've been putting out into the collective consciousness has been telling the universe we want to be better people. We want to, take care of each other. We don't like this hurting each other type of thing. Why this, why that? Well, that's how we're evolving because that's what we're putting out.
Right.
So, thankfully, enough people have hit 30% of the world has hit a certain frequency on a regular basis in order for it to happen, because that's what needed to happen. So,
Oh,
mhm.
would it happen faster if more people, I mean, like, is that going to speed it up?
Yeah, it would have sped it up. You see how things are happening much faster than they used to.
Uh-huh.
As soon as computers came online, things started happening faster. And then we got cell phones, and then things started happening even faster. The more technology develops and the more we get additional senses, the faster things will happen. Think about way back when they built like a steam engine. It took a really long time before the next invention came about.
Right.
But that's not how it is. And people are like, I can't believe it's June already. Things are moving much faster. And the thing that I find interesting, though, I can't wait to listen to the thing you just sent me, which is so wrong of you to send me right before we get on here.
I know.
It's like I'm sitting here dying to listen to it because um, you had said that you heard that they're not going to live as long. And I've actually heard that we're going to live
Me
longer.
too. Me too.
So I want to know what
Yeah.
that is, right? So, the cool thing is that I used to be so terrified of death, and learning everything that I learned, I'm not at all, because we don't want to be here in one scenario forever. We would get bored with it. We
Right.
want to finish after, whatever amount of time, and then start over in a new scenario to, it's crazy amazing to me, because I mean, I was so terrified of death. I would walk around 8 years old in the middle of the night by myself, crying, shaking my hands, saying, I'm going to be in a coffin. I'm going to be in a coffin. And it was
Oh, wow.
horrible. I mean, I
Huh.
tortured myself, but now I'm just like, man, this is going to be amazing. So I've done this before, and we'll do this again. And, but we're here for this. How amazing is that? We're here for this big shift. The next time we come, we'll probably be taking a break because, we did this big one. So,
Right.
it's I can't wait to see it, right?
Right.
Think about how old we are. We're in our mid-50s. We're going to be alive for a long time. When these kids get to be adults, we're still going to be here to see that. Oh my gosh, how amazing is that? How
Right.
lucky are we?
And we'll probably have grandchildren and great
Oh yeah,
grandchildren that are
our
that
grandchildren
way.
will definitely be, absolutely. And
Right?
my daughter, my oldest, she was born, there's a certain time frame, and I think it's a 9-month time frame. I cannot remember exactly what it is. My daughter was born August 19th, 1998, and somewhere she's within the 9 months that were specifically put on this earth to be the first ones to have the babies after 2027. How
Oh,
crazy is it? She's getting married
wow.
in this year.
Huh.
So it's natural for her to have a baby in 2027. It's
Amazing.
2025. She's getting
Right.
married in September. So, and I wasn't even paying attention to that until we just started talking about it. But yeah, so she's built, I don't understand the whole process, but I know that she's built to be able to handle the new human as a mother. And so it's nuts, but yeah.
Wow. Huh. Let's talk about the feminine, how we're shifting too with more, the masculine has ruled the world in the last, what, 60, 100 years. I mean,
Yes, yeah. I mean, thousands and thousands.
thousands and thousands. But I
So,
mean, when I'm thinking of our life, like that's all we've known is this
right.
masculine energy ruling the world. And now it's
Right.
shifting. Explain that.
Right. So when we were talking about the variables, it was like if you all four variables were pointing to the left when, in the beginning of time, and or I should say when we became humans, and now we're moving where the arrows are moving more toward the right, where with the feminine, right? And so um people the living in they call it the feminine mystique. I don't get into the names and stuff because some people consider it one thing or another, even with with that name. All it is that it doesn't mean that men are not going to be masculine. It just means that, and women, there are women who are masculine as well. It means that there's going to be much more sensitivity and emotional intelligence than there has been in the past. The emotional intelligence is really the biggest part of that because um, we don't realize how, and I use my husband for this every time.
Oh,
He
funny.
doesn't mind, but he would have years ago. But like I said, he used to be really arrogant. And, he'd be like, oh, you think you did your best? Well, now try my best, and I'm like, that's so horrible to say to somebody. And he never thought about it on their terms, right? And so now, since he's been learning about all this stuff, he said, I can't even fathom saying that to someone right now. Or even, he said, I wouldn't even think to say something. He goes, I can't imagine what that person would think if I said that. He said, and it never even came to my mind before. He said, it was just all about me,
Hmm.
his ego. And
Right.
so we're moving away from that, take care of yourself, look out for number one, those types of things. And so now when someone isn't able to do something, he walks over to them and says, hey, that's okay. You did your best. Let me see what I can help you with. We can maybe, get it to another level. Maybe we can move it up. And he's like, I actually like myself now. And I said, that's because you have more feminine in you, but you're not a woman, right? It doesn't mean that you're,
Right.
you know, female. It
Right.
just means that you aren't as harsh or rigid. It's not the same as male female, masculine feminine. It's not. So people get very confused by that. It's just using your emotional intelligence. And that is the way we're headed. We are stopping to think before we do things.
Right.
Who is this going to affect, besides
Right.
me? So
Right. They keep talking the end of the Piscean age, we're into the Aquarian age, the Kali Yuga, the 25,000 year cycles. What is that? I mean, we're part of like that timeline. Like we're here to experience this shift. And
yeah.
that all plays into it. Can you explain that?
So I'm not sure as much about the Kali Yuga and the 25 thousand-year experience. Unless I'm just getting the wording wrong, because that's very possible. I know that what's happening right now when you're talking about going from the Piscean to the Aquarius, so we're in the age of Aquarius, where we had a small blip of this in the 60s and 70s, and people think it was not a small blip, but it really was, because we're about to go through a much bigger thing. That was actually to prep us for this. So this is when
Oh,
everybody was like flower children and stuff. When it comes to astrology, depending on how long a transit is, either I shouldn't say it doesn't, it'll depend how long you stay in a regression. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So let's say, so you notice when we have Mercury in retrograde, right?
right.
Um, well, that's not a good one either. Okay, let's just say, so for example, right now we have Saturn moved into Aries, just recently moved into Aries. It's going to be here for a little while, and then it's going to go back into Pisces for a little bit. Now, and then it's going to go back into Aries again in the beginning of next year for several years. So it always gives you a taste for a few months, depending on how long it stays in each sign. If it stays in for 3 years, it goes for a few months. If it stays in for, many years, it'll go in, it's longer. So it's just a taste. It's a percentage or a portion of what it's going to be like when it comes. It's so it doesn't shock your system, right?
Oh, okay.
It kind of shocks you, but then it goes back to what you're used to, and then it goes back to what you were shocked with. So it doesn't, it's kind of like testing the waters. If it's hot, you just test it and then you test it again. So that's what I mean. So what we did back then was what we're experiencing now. It is all about being humanitarian, being so we had a little taste of flower children and all that, and all that kind of stuff, peace, love, and happiness. And then we went into a major time in the 80s and 90s of, how much money can I make? Who can I, who's going to sell more and not care what that person is,
Right.
they have to pay their bills and stuff. And so when we hit that, now we understand the differences, right? And so we're supposed to be um moving away from hierarchies and moving away from that masculine energy so that we can start to genuinely take care of each other again the way we did years ago, or way, way back, way, way, way back before things got um I can't even say when, just the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be taking care of each other. It's not supposed to be a king and then everybody serves the king. It's not supposed to be like that. And so
Right.
it has taken us a long time to get here, but what we are talking about with astrology, the reason this is such a potent time is because it's not just one planet that's shifting. It's almost every planet is shifting from one sign to another. And some planets shift every year, every 2 years, every 5 years. Some shift every 11 years, every 20 years, every 30,000 years. It depends on what aspects and stuff, what different planets, however long it takes. All of those things are happening at this point in life.
Oh,
So that's why this is such a huge thing. Plus, we're leaving. So again, this is all, that's why I say I think it's the wording that you use that I'm not familiar with. What's happening is the Kali Yuga, if I have that right, they're probably referring to the fact that this is an epoch that is the last epoch was like the worst life had to offer. Like it was like mean and horrible. It went on for thousands of years, but it was just horrible. And we're coming into the new epoch, which is going to be light and
hmm.
beauty and stuff like that. So we're on, this is like, that's why they called it the apocalypse. It is literally the end of everything we understood the world to be. It's not the end of the world as itself. It is the end of living the way we lived. We are totally becoming new beings, right? I mean, it's just, it's so amazing to me. And it will be amazing to anybody who at least allows it in. Like if they just say, okay, show me what I don't know. That little sentence, you're asking, it is given, is real. You put that out, the universe will say, oh, okay, so now you're ready for the information. And then all of a sudden, all this information starts coming to you. As long as you stay open to it and you say, okay, well, I'll read that. Do I agree with it or not? I don't know. Then I'll read something else. Little by little, the universe will show you how this stuff fits in, and you won't feel the stress. The people that are feeling the stress are the ones that are trying to hold on to the old way
Hmm.
of doing things. And so that's why life is so heavy for them. But as you know, we're shifting away so much faster now because the world is like, okay, ready or not, we're moving into this lighter period. So you need to either catch on or, they're, you notice people are hurting themselves. They're either they taking their own lives, or they're just going out and hurting other people who are at the same frequency. It's horrible because they don't know what to do with themselves. They're feeling all of this, heavy energy, and they don't know what to do. All they have to do is open up and say, okay, teach me. Just
Right.
tell me what it is. And then listen to their body. Their intuition will tell them if it's right or wrong, because not everybody is telling you the truth.
Hmm.
Some people might be saying stuff and it's like, oh, oh no, that did not sound right there. Well, then question it. Your
Right.
body knows whether to do it or not, right or not. But yeah, that's how I understand it. And as the further we move, the lighter it gets. That's why we're not going to have to eat as much.
Right.
And we'll be, I mean, it's just phenomenal. I'm so excited about it. I can't even tell
I
you.
know. Well, you're making me excited. When you're talking about it, I was like getting goosebumps. But what else it was interesting too was like thinking that 2020 had to happen, like this whole that year was so had to be, right? And I think, gosh, I started my podcast in 2020. And when I look back, and I'm almost at 300 episodes, right? So say 300 people that I've met. And it's like it's all like showing me like the progression of the earth and the human from 2020. I mean, my podcast is a pure example of that. And what I talk about now versus even a year ago, the progression of that even is so evident. So I was like, when you're talking about how like the shift and how 2020 I think was such a, I mean 2012 too, but for me seeing it actually as a, it's like reading a book and I'm seeing all these different chapters and
That's
like you
exactly
see,
right.
right?
That's exactly right. That's why when people say, oh, something big's going to happen in 2015, whatever, I'm just throwing a year out. Well, you can't see what's going to happen. And when people are like, I mean, they can give you ideas if it's going to be like a weather event or if it could possibly be health wise. That's what they saw coming around the time of COVID, but you can't say how drastic it's going to be because you don't know how people are going to handle it, right? So this one was really bad because of the way a lot of it was handled, but you can't so like people can't say, oh, it's going to be the end of the world, or oh, it's going to be, California is going to fly off of the map. That's You can't say stuff like that. Something is going to happen in this part of the world that's going to be related to, the weather. That you can say, but you can't.
Hmm.
People scare people, instead of just saying, that's all we can say. It could be this, it could be this, it could be, but you don't know how it's going to play out. And that's where I get frustrated because people are like, oh, the stars are saying this. And I'm like, it never has happened. How many times have people said the world's coming to an end?
Right.
Events did happen on those times, but it wasn't the end of the world. So when will you learn that? When will you learn that we're just improving? We're just changing. We're morphing. You stop putting fear in everybody's heads. This is not fearful. This is the best time in history, and it's only going to get better for all of us who want to love each other, right? That's what it is. If you want to be the owner of a big conglomerate and boss people around, yep, this is going to be hard for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you really got to get to a point where you care. And
Right.
that's where we're headed. So, I mean, that's if you want to call that the end of the world, then that's where I'm going to be. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I feel that I'm getting that. I feel that, now, like I just feel like my life is just like every day I get so excited for the magic and, my knowing, feeling my energy and my vibration. It's like, I can't imagine. In fact, if something, gets me to like go down a little bit, I'm so like, whoa, I got to get back. I know it feels too good to be living at that high vibration, you know?
how crazy is that? So that's one of the things that we're doing at the retreat as well. So people know frequencies, but they don't know them in a lot of people don't know them the way that they actually the details of them. Like what you just said was so spot on. That is
Yay.
exactly how you're supposed to react. The lower frequencies, guilt, fear, anger, apathy, all those are literally supposed to be signals that yuck, I don't want to be here. So just what you said, you're so happy being at those higher vibrations that when you dip, you're like, oh, I don't want to feel that. And so you go back up. That is literally what we're here for. We were supposed to be doing this all along. And so when you get to the higher vibrations, I do not want to go down there. So whatever it takes, you know,
Mm.
and even when you lose a loved one, people are getting to the point where they're saying, well, we're going to celebrate their life. We're not going to sit here and say, oh, woe is me, right? And so that's beautiful. So you don't have to go all the way down to grief. You may go down to grief for a day because, it's something
Right.
that you're not used to, but you will pull yourself back up. And that's exactly what you need to do. But you have to understand that. Otherwise, everybody sits in those lower vibrations. They don't even know they're there.
Right.
Don't even know they're sitting in there. And they're
Mm-mm.
like, how is your life? How could you be happy? And or they're like, I'm happy. You don't know. I'm happy. And I'm like, that is not happiness coming off of your body, you know?
Yes.
So that's the idea. If they can understand where they're at and move themselves up, little by little, they're gonna go fluctuate. But if they can get to the higher vibrations on a regular basis, they're gonna want to go back down. And that's doing that is actually going to help move the world in the right direction. So Dr. David Hawkins, who came out
Hmm.
with Power versus Force, he was the major shift,
Right.
having everybody raise their vibration. Well, that book kind of settled, right? It needs to come out again so that people can say, so what do you mean? I'm here. And oh, so instead of being angry about this situation for 3 days, if I get over it in an hour, I'll actually raise my vibration and I can live a happier life. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just people don't get how to, they hear all the time, raise your vibration. Like I hear my daughter and her friends saying that, and then I hear them complaining and gossiping, and I'm like, do you even know what you're saying? I'm like,
Oh,
you
funny.
have to understand what frequency each one of these are at so that you may be happy because you're gossiping, but that is not a high frequency. I was like, if
Right.
you're going to leave the house and you guys are going to wonder why you get into a fight with another group of friends, it's because your, vibration is so low that they're feeling like you're pushing back at them. I'm like, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, oh God, help me. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, we have
But
those conversations too in here in this house and have for so long. It's so funny to have those conversations with our children. Okay, so let's go. I still have a couple things. We're going to go a little bit over, but so when we were planning the retreat, and I said, let's do it in October, and you're not an airplane person, and I'm learning. And you said, first, I need to go to the Void of Course and make sure of the dates. And I was like, Void of Course, Jeannie? Another magical tool you have in the toolkit. So explain to people that.
Yes, this one's really powerful. So anytime you're going to do something, so the one percenters of the world or true percenters, whatever you want to call them, the people who are very successful, have things, it seems like everything works out for them, use a lot of these tools that other people just don't know about. One of them is the void of course. And what that means is there is when a planet, or I should say when the moon is going from one sign to the next sign, there is at times there's a period of time where it is void of course. And so if the moon is not aspecting it doesn't have any major aspects in between that time, what happens and what history has told us is if you start something during that time, sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's a few hours, sometimes it's a day or two. But if you start something, it may start off really well, but it will fail. And the reason is the moon is not pointing or aspecting a planet that could give it substance. Okay. And so there are calendars out there that tell you when a void starts and when it ends. And it could be like, 3:21 a.m., today, and it ends, 9:06 p.m. tonight or tomorrow or something. It gives you exact things. And it is so important to pay attention to this. And what I just learned yesterday, and I think I told you this, is don't if you can plan your child's birth, like having a C-section or something, do not have it at a void of course.
Huh.
And because the moon is the mother, and the child and the mother at a void of course will not have a connection.
Oh, wow.
That's what that means.
Huh.
And it's sad, because a lot of times the mother has no idea why they don't feel connected to the child and vice versa. But it's because they were born during the void of course. Now, there's a lot of other scenarios, but like mine exactly, I when the moon leaves the sign, mine was leaving um the planet, it was leaving the sun. The sun has to do with the father. It's related to the father. And the moon is the mother, and it
Right.
was going to the sign of Cancer. And Cancer has to do with family. So I was born at a void of course when it was like a perfect storm for no connection to family. And that is exactly how I've lived. My father,
Wow.
for some reason, could not, just did not like me. He didn't know why. He just did not like me. Um, when that horrible stuff happened with my daughter, both sides of the family just didn't console us. There was so many things that happened that the average family would have totally come and, taken care of, and it didn't happen for me. And so I learned I didn't know that that's what, I literally just found that out yesterday when I
Huh.
looked
Oh,
at my void of course. I never looked to see if I had a void of course, right? And so, but I looked up several other people's on their birthday, and it was exactly what their relationship was to their mother and their father. If the son was involved, but the son's not involved, it really has to do with the mother, right? And then
okay.
whatever. So it goes a little deeper if you wanted to open a business or start a new podcast or a project. You would want to look for something that has to do with, so let's say the podcast, you would want to look for the next sign that it was entering into as being, or the sign that it was coming from as being like maybe Gemini, because it's very strong in communication. It would be, or that you would look at the house. So we can go a little deeper, but anytime you're starting something new, the easiest thing to do is just look on the calendar of the void of course and make sure that when you're doing this, it's not within the time that it is void of course. And then mostly you will end up having a good outcome.
Hmm.
Now, the thing is that people like Reagan, so Reagan's wife was very much into this. And anytime you don't want something to have a good effect or have an effect, right? So let's say you were being sued for something and you didn't want anything to come of it. You would want that to happen during the void of course because nothing would come of it.
Oh,
Okay. So if you could schedule things like that, and she did, and that's why Reagan always did his stuff at weird times, like, 6 minutes after 12 at night, or, it's because he did it out either in the void of course or out of the void of course, depending on how he wanted it to turn out. And
huh.
there's a lot of singers that use this. There's a lot of politicians. A lot of people don't tell you, but they do use this, and it helps. It's almost like I'm going to have a parade. I'm going to look at the weather, and it's going to rain on this Saturday and it's going to be sunny on this Saturday. Which one do I want to do? Well, you want to do it when it's sunny, when you have a better chance of having a good outcome. So
Right.
that's what you're doing. You're just giving yourself a better chance of a good outcome. So let
Amazing.
everything play for you instead of against
Right.
you.
Right. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to learn more about that. You're going to talk about that at the retreat too, right?
Yes, I'm going to go deep into that and give everybody the websites, the ones that I think are reputable, and what to look for.
Oh, fun. I can't wait. Okay, let's end this with what we're going to collaborate on and what we're going to create together. And I just love creating with you. And it's like when you when we decided to do this retreat and now understanding the void of course and knowing that you picked the 11th and 12th because it was the perfect in alignment with making it, a powerful weekend together. And now, like, it's so early before October, but the momentum and the energy, and I was telling you that before we got on and recorded this, I was like, oh my gosh, I keep getting people like, I mean, it could be like if we wanted to sell it out, that's how I feel. And then when you're explaining the void of course, I'm like, no wonder, right? Like there's so much
Exactly.
energy it's coming from that.
Yep, and I went with the sign too. I can't remember which sign I used, but yeah, you if you do all of that, the energy just flows with you, and people, especially people in your fractal, if people have the same purpose, if they're all here for like a similar purpose, they're literally their bodies wake up and they turn on the radio or they turn on a podcast just at the moment that they hear this. It's like it's a bell that goes off, and so. Yeah, so that kind of stuff, that's exactly how that happens.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's talk about this new creation that you are going to share with the world again. Not
So,
again, but what we're going to create together.
yes. So I have a lot of stuff that I have learned over the years because I didn't have a lot of guidance, the whole family thing, right? And I want to teach it um, because you and I are very similar. I mean, it's amazing how we think so much alike in so many areas. You and I I'm going to teach you the different modalities or the different things that I have learned along the way. And then we're going to offer it as a workshop. And it's going to be very reasonable. Do you want to
Yeah.
say? Yeah, so it's going to be just like $50, like, for the work for per workshop. And so we're going to I'm going to teach you first, and then we're going to put it out as so that you understand what exactly it is that I'm teaching and you can speak on it. And then you're going to talk about it, and then we'll have it, I say live, but it's live on Zoom, right? For people to learn all the different techniques and whatever works for them. And the best part is they don't have to buy any kind of a membership that, they have to, they're going to get each one. They can just buy them as they go. Like they like this one and they're going to be out of town. They don't want to do, the next two or, whatever it is. And then it'll be available in the future for future purchase if somebody decides, oh, I've watched these other three. I wonder what the first two were, and so, but I'm so excited because this is exactly what I've wanted. I want to be able to share all the stuff that has gotten me to the point where I have an amazingly peaceful life and do it where I don't gouge people.
Right.
Right. And I just feel like that's because people are so genuine, especially the people that from your group are amazing. I have my own posse that are wonderful, but I've learned that there's just so many more people out there like that, and they don't know where to look. So
Right.
that's what we're gonna do.
I love it.
And we don't know what we're gonna call it yet. So
It'll come.
it'll come,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh, Jeannie, it's like I think of all the people that I've sent you and I just when I met you and the connection that I felt and what I've learned from you in just this last hour alone, besides our sessions of human design and gene keys and all the other things that you teach me. And and you feel like this it's a resonance, like when you meet so let's say you've met 100 of my people or whatever it is. And
six. I had
60, you've met
60
60 of my people.
crazy.
So amazing to think that when I knew that that what you did for me and it's like I want everyone to do it. It's like I'm not going to take no for an answer because I want you to do it. And it's just so beautiful to see these lives. Oh, there's the light bulbs go on and the connections that they have with you because I know that if I do, they will too, and it's like
Oh,
it's just such a beautiful, it makes me so happy and I get so excited to be together in October and do these workshops together and who knows, there'll be more to come. I know that for sure.
I'm thrilled. Yes, I'm thrilled. Thank
So
you so much for starting this when you did. I mean, because this is exactly the type of thing that people needed. Good Lord. I mean, exactly when you started it.
not
Exactly. And I'm
funny.
so grateful that Carol showed up because she could have gone to anybody
I
to
know,
get a message from her grandson. So,
right?
I mean, it's a perfect storm, but it was a beautiful storm, perfect storm. So I love
Yeah,
it. I'm
I do
thrilled.
too. So divinelyinspiredmessages.com,
Mhm.
Jeannie Winters. You can go to my link tree on Instagram and sign up for the link for the retreat, October 11th and 12th. You can email me and get any information, hotels. It's at this beautiful location in San Diego. Uh, uh, just to be together for 2 days is going to be amazing. So,
Yes, I can't wait.
me too. So, thank you, Jeannie. Until
Thank
next
you.
time, I just, I can't wait to hug you in person.
I know. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you.